afternoon, everyone. This is Tony from Her Homestead Skills. Yes, it is a bit of a scorcher out there today, and yes, we did have a threat of storms and tornadoes that didn't materialize, which is good. Didn't even get the rain, which is bad. That's fairly unusual. Whenever you get this hot, we always seem to have a storm afterwards. We have that cooling trend that comes, and perhaps that will happen this afternoon because, once again, we've got the scorcher. I have heard that there are heat warnings in effect today, but I haven't heard that there's any tornado warnings this time. So the nasty storms have avoided us. My garden's doing great. I checked on it a bit this morning. I was in a bit of a rush because I had an appointment that I had to make, and which I did. But I did do a quick checkup on my garden, and the netting that I had placed over the beans a few days ago seems to be working. There were a few holes in it. I think something was trying to tear into it and get into my beans, but overall it seemed to have held, and the beans seem to be growing underneath it, so hopefully they will grow to the point where the bunnies will leave them alone. The bunnies seem to like the very young tender shoots, and once they get to a certain height, they leave them alone. I would like them to get to that height so that I could get some beans this year. Anyway, and definitely getting pickles. I picked another batch of pickles, and it's not quite enough to do another jar. So it's in my refrigerator cooling in ice water. I'll pick a few more tomorrow, and then I will do another jar of cucumbers, or pickles actually. So, and for those of you interested in how my dehydrated peas came out, they came out just fine. A 2-pound bag netted me just over a pint, so I had to put it in the quart-sized jar. Dried out beautifully, and I probably will do the second bag and then vacuum seal this jar once the 2 bags are done. So that is interesting. Anyway, peas turned out awesome, and I will do more. And I still want to do onions and celery, and I want to do those individually. And I did get a big bag of onions. I just have to move my dehydrator outside. There is no way I am going to dehydrate onions inside where I have to breathe that air. So, okay, I guess another one of those things that I would like to discuss today is a little bit of a concern over the fact that there's virtually very little to no media attention being paid to quite a number of issues that the average person is having. So, like in China, there is comments, but there's no real serious media attention paid to people who aren't allowed to access their bank accounts and haven't been allowed to access their bank accounts for months. And they have protested, and I don't really think that they are getting any satisfaction. I think they're still being kept away from their funds in their bank accounts, which is a pretty frightening state of affairs, I would think. You can't pay your bills. I mean, we had that happen in Canada as well. The farmers' protests in the Netherlands, which I understood were supported by Italy and Poland and Spain and Germany. So with that many countries protesting and supporting the Netherlands, why is it getting virtually no media attention? These things are a little bit disconcerting. There are disruptions everywhere. They're either being ignored or they're being silenced by not giving them any attention. Okay, so while I was out and about today, well, after my appointment, I did some more running around for my own pleasure this time, but I had the radio on, and it turns out that apparently the food banks are struggling in such a way that they have never struggled in the last 40 years. They can't keep up with the demand. Apparently there's so many new people looking for food, and they're asking for those that can to contribute to those who don't have enough again. So I don't know what's going on there, but apparently the comment was that they've not struggled this badly to fill the need in 40 years. Okay, so we've always had food banks, and we do try to look after those that are having a hard time, and perhaps through no fault of their own, just circumstances. But when even the food banks are struggling, what happens then? When the average person is going to be struggling to pay the mortgages on their homes because interest rates have gone up, will be struggling to put food on the table because the cost of food has probably gone up by another $1,000 a month over what it was. That was what I'd heard was the amount that it had increased by. The price of gas to get to and from work, although there are those that are fighting to continue to either work from home full-time or work from home part-time, so they only have to travel to the office on occasion. But I don't think everyone can get away with that. And when you add all those things up, how can you help those that are less fortunate than you when you can barely make ends meet yourself? Many people are catching on that there are going to be shortages and that they're going to have to do without because it's affecting them finally. And many of you who post online let me know that, yeah, a lot of you are doing exactly what I'm doing. You're putting away as much food as possible. Some of you spend every day doing that. I try to, but every day is also hard for me. But yeah, I'd say that I'm putting up food at least 5 days a week. And as the fall comes on, I'm sure I'll be spending much more time doing that. Although I think I'm good and prepared, I have a lot of empty jars, and I'd like to fill them, and we'll just have to see what I can do to do that. The dehydrating is coming along quite smoothly, and I'll continue to do that. Many of our world leaders are actually in trouble. They have no idea how to resolve the issues. They focus on things that don't matter to the majority of the population and ignore the things that do matter to the majority of the population. So, of course they're going to have difficulties doing that. Trying to create a civilization without the buy-in of the population isn't going to work. And you don't get the buy-in with the average person without giving them, making sure it benefits them. If all it does is hurt them, you'll never get their buy-in. Okay, and by providing your population a benefit does not mean that you give them handouts. Most people don't want handouts. They want to be able to work for a living, make a decent living, support their family, have dignity, have a roof over their head, have enough food to eat, and hopefully have a little extra on the side that they can enjoy life here and there on occasion. So if you cannot give them those benefits, if all you're doing is saying, we want to create the ideal society, but you have to suffer in order for that to happen, you won't get their buy-in. And you can't blame them. I have very little interest in promoting one ideology over another. Don't really care. That's not my thing. But I did get one post that said to me, well, the United States should become more united. We are one country, aren't we? Well, yeah, you are, but you're kind of like Canada in the sense that each state has their own ideologies, their own perspective, what they believe they want to promote and what they believe that they don't want to promote. And it's no different in Canada. I mean, we have Quebec, which wants to rule by Quebec laws. They want French speaking to be first and foremost. And it's completely different than Ontario. And Ontario is completely different than the prairies. And the prairies are completely different from the West Coast. And the East Coast is completely different again. So you have areas where you have different ideologies, different ways of thinking, different beliefs in what you would prioritize and what you believe is more important in your life. And I don't think that the states are any different. You have southern states that think one way, you have western states that think another way, you have the northern states, once again, that think their own way. And everyone thinks that everyone else should think the way they do, but that will never happen. Who has to give up their own ideology for somebody else's, and why should they? What is wrong with having diverse views and diverse beliefs? I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that that makes for a little bit more interesting world than just to have one mindset and one thought pattern and everyone thinks exactly the same. It would be pretty boring. So, no, I don't see it happening. Okay, well, let's all get back to basic needs here. Everyone needs shelter. Everyone needs food. And everyone needs to be cared for. Love. And know that they have dignity and that they matter. So. And that the most basic is food and shelter. So let's get back to the issue with the farmers. And if they're not supported, and if that basic of the most basic needs is not met, food and water, what are we going to do now? I suggest that everyone do their ultimate best to support their farmers. That's all I have to say.